Hey guys, welcome to yet another monthly net worth update. And today we are covering September 2025. So let's go ahead and jump right into the numbers. My net worth at the end of August last month was $137,684. The equity that I have in the condo I own sits at $63,510. This is an increase of $323 month over month. My RRSP, or Registered Retirement Savings Plan, here in Canada. If you don't know, this is just like a classic retirement account in Canada. And I haven't put money into this in, I want to say, 3 or 4 years now since I left my corporate job. So all of the increases, all of the decreases as well, all the ups and downs are just coming from the market. And that account sits at $71,306. This is a really amazing increase of $2,945. Like I said, this is only coming from the market gains, and the market's been doing really well. At least my investments have been. And if you haven't seen these videos before, I am fully invested in VEQT, which is the Vanguard All Equity Fund. So I'm super happy to see this doing so well. My DCPP, or Defined Contribution Pension Plan, this is left over from an old job of mine here, sits at $5,537, a nice increase here of $224. My travel account, which I added to my list of accounts last month, sits at $0, and this is a decrease of $400 month over month. So last month I had put a little bit of money aside for upcoming travel, which we're going to talk about in life updates, but that is now at $0. And my emergency fund, which is the last account on this list, sits at $200. So this also had a decrease of $223. And that brings the grand total net worth for September 2025 to $140,553. This is the first time it's been over $140,000 in a few years now. So I am super excited to see this. And again, it's all coming just from market gains, which is amazing. This is an increase month over month of $2,869. So I am just elated to see this kind of growth. Super, super happy about this because I have not been doing very well with trying to rein in my spending. And we're going to talk about that really soon. But next up is income. So let's dive into that. On YouTube, I made $150. This is just through AdSense. I don't currently do any kind of partnerships. And then my regular full-time job at the brewery, I made $2,907. And that brings the total income for September to $3,057. So not a super high earning month. I don't make a lot of money. Again, if you haven't seen these videos, I make about $22 an hour. And yeah, my take home is typically, I guess, between like $2,800 and $3,200, depending on how much overtime I work. Now let's dive into expenses. So every month, my housing expenses are pretty consistent, $1,740. My insurance, which includes my vehicle insurance as well as condo insurance, I spent $184. My phone cost me the same every month, $37. Internet cost me $60 last month, and then electricity, I spent $50. For streaming services, I spent $24. I currently have F1, Netflix, and Prime. I think Prime just ended today. Netflix, I'm on the plan where it's like you watch with ads, so I think it's like $8 a month. And then F1, which I'll have till the end of this season probably, is about $13 or $14 a month. Fuel this month, I spent $87. I did a few trips out to the mountains and just kind of like driving around the city. This is a little bit higher than my budget is, which is $50 a month. On groceries, I spent $366. This is pretty close to my budget of $300, so I'm happy to see that. Next item on the list is entertainment. This is the one I think I struggle with the most. I spent $830 in this category this month, and seems to be a trend. So I think I either need to just really hunker down, get this spending under control, or realize that I need to increase this budget because my budget is normally $300 a month. Last month I did pretty good on this, but I had a friend visiting in September. I also had like kind of a fancy dinner out, and I prepaid for a couple of events. I also did a little bit of shopping and stuff. And because October is going to be a 3-pay month for me, I sort of justified it that way. But we're going to dive into that later in life updates. So again, this is something that I hope doesn't continue. I want to say it's also because the weather's been so amazing. I tend to spend quite a bit more money in the summer, like most people, I think. When the weather is nice, you just want to be out and doing things. And I'm hoping this tapers off throughout fall and winter. My miscellaneous category, I spent $260. So this was basically just miscellaneous shopping, things for my condo, a few things here and there. It did add up quite quickly, but there's just like all of these kind of miscellaneous items that sometimes fall into the same month where I have to buy a bunch of stuff. Like my budget every month for this is 150. So it's not crazy over, but again, this is something I would like to get lower. And then I did add travel onto this list. In the last month, I spent $160 on camping, had like a long weekend camping trip that was a few hours away, and just paying for things like food and a bit of alcohol and just a few other things. So that I think is totally fine. That came out of the travel budget. That was part of, the $400 that I had in there. Some of that came out, and then I also took some of that money away from the travel fund to cover some of my like excess spending. So the grand total for expenses for September was $3,798. So yes, you can see that I spent, over $700 over what I made in the month. And I will just reiterate, part of that is because October is a 3-pay month, and I kind of anticipated having higher expenses in September and pushing those forward to October. Like I mentioned in the expenses category, I had a super busy month, had people visiting, was socializing quite a bit, going out camping, like every weekend was packed full, and some of the weekdays as well. And yes, that has increased a lot of my spending, and it's made me burn out a little bit, which I think I talked about in the last video, but it's just been a crazy busy month. The weather's been amazing for this time of year here in Calgary. Something I don't regret, of course, but I do want to taper down on a busy life over the next few months. Like as the weather gets colder, I kind of just want to like hang out at home, enjoy my mortgage, if you will. The second update I wanted to talk about is that my van is currently up for sale. I mentioned this in the last video that I was going to be putting it up for sale, and the best offer I've received so far is $600. So originally I posted it for $1,400, didn't really get any bites, and I reposted it now for $900. I was really hoping to get $800, but we'll see what happens. Like it still runs perfectly fine. It would be a great car for the winter. It has tons of space and everything. Part of me is kind of sad that I'm getting rid of it actually, but it's just not super reliable for the long term. And I am potentially going to be driving a little bit more for certain things. So I want something more reliable. And I think in the last video, I mentioned that I was going to be saving up for a new car. So I had an opportunity come up in the last month where a coworker of mine is moving overseas and had a couple vehicles. And one of them was a little bit out of my price range, but not so much that I turned it down. So we were chatting about it. I took it for a test drive. I took a look at it. This is the type of person I like really trust with taking care of things. And it has low kilometers. It's a 2015 Golf, like Volkswagen Golf, and it's really cute. It's really small, much more practical for downtown living, and for someone who doesn't really commute to and from work. It's just like a nice small vehicle that'll be much better with fuel economy than the van is. So I am paying $12,000 for this new car, and I'm using a line of credit to buy it. So my line of credit is like empty right now. The last time I used it was to buy a vehicle like 3 years ago, I want to say. And that was like for my partner at the time, and he paid me back over time. So I increased the limit a bit on it to $15,000. And my plan is to pay this off over the next couple of years. Anytime I get like a bonus at work, or some money comes in from somewhere, or there's like another 3-pay month or something like that, I want to throw it at this. Like my line of credit interest rate is, I think, 8.43%. I'm going to look at a few options to see if I can fix a portion of that at a lower interest rate to make it, a little bit more financially reasonable over the next few years, however long it takes me to pay this off. But I think this is just a good opportunity, and I felt like I needed to jump on it because I don't necessarily need a vehicle, but it is really nice to have for certain situations. I tend to drive only like once a week, sometimes twice, but it is really nice to have in the winter. Like right now, it's still beautiful out. I can cycle to and from work with no problem. And I'm not gonna wanna do it when it's -20, -30 degrees, super snowy and windy. I don't wanna have to like spend a bunch of money to get my bike ready to cycle in the winter. Last winter, I only cycled when it wasn't snowy or icy and was above -10 degrees. So it's just something that I think is a good investment long-term. I think I'll have this car for at least 10 more years, maybe more like 20. We'll see how it goes. It has like 115,000 kilometers on it. So I think it is the right choice. I've done the math. It should cost me about $340 every month, which includes insurance, fuel, and then kind of like my minimum payment on the line of credit, which should be like $120, $130 a month. And honestly, the van was costing me between $200 and $300 a month already anyway. Like, it's just so horrible with fuel economy. I ended up spending so much more money on gas than I needed to, even though I only drove it like once a week. And hopefully I can sell the van for a decent amount. Anything I make from the van is gonna go directly towards paying off that line of credit. So I will give you guys a little car tour once I get that. I'm super excited. It's really, really cute. I've already named her. Her name is Jerry, and she's kind of like this lightish blue color. It's amazing. It's in really great condition, so I'm super excited for that. The next update I wanted to chat about is that special assessment at my condo I mentioned in the last video. So that is definitely going to be happening. I've done a bit of the math, and it looks like for my unit, because it's by unit factor, it's not divided by the amount of units. It's actually like how big your unit is, you're gonna pay a bigger share. And I have, I think, the second or the third largest unit in the building. So my cost is gonna be between like $2,500 and $3,000, I think. And that's gonna be paid off quarterly over the next year. So I should be able to manage that no problem. One of the reasons why I increased my credit limit on my line of credit to $15,000 to like over cover the vehicle is for this, just in case I didn't have like the wiggle room. But needless to say, I need to get my spending in check here because I have some more expenses getting added on to my budget. And I just don't want to start going into debt over things like this. With the vehicle, I'm not considering it like bad debt because it's worth what I'm paying for it. In fact, I'm getting like a little bit off because this was a coworker, so it's worth a little bit more than what I'm gonna pay for it. So it like kind of cancels itself out. The fourth thing on this list is travel. So I've mentioned travel in a few videos. A lot of my videos are traveling around New Zealand and making content surrounding that kind of lifestyle. But I've had a lot of travel burnout ever since coming back from New Zealand, traveling for just over a year and then coming back on like almost a month-long cruise and spending some time in Australia. I just got like super burnt out. However, I am getting a little bit back into it. So I am going to be doing a road trip with my partner, which we'll talk about him in a minute, but we're gonna be doing a road trip for my birthday. I'm excited for my birthday. I have no problem getting older. I think it's part of life. And honestly, my 30s have been my best years so far. So I'm super pumped for that, but I'm really excited to go up to Jasper. It's the first time I've been there since they had like a really big forest fire. Out of anywhere I've ever been, Jasper is my favorite place. And my partner has never been there. So I'm excited to show him all of my favorite spots. We're gonna go on a hike. I think we're gonna golf a little bit. Hopefully the weather cooperates for that, but I'm super excited. And then the last update for those of you who are invested in my dating life, I am still with my current boyfriend. I think I like didn't mention this in the last video and some of you were asking about it, but things are going really well. I've met his parents. He met my dad when he was in town. We see each other's friends like a few times a month. And I think we're just kind of integrating into each other's lives really well. And we get along super well. We don't really have any fights. I'm just super happy. It's been, I think, 5 months or so now since we started seeing each other, and it's just going great. I'm really excited for the future with him. I think he's an absolutely wonderful person. He's one of the best people I've ever met. He is just so calm and kind and caring, and he's just incredible. So I'm gonna do everything I can to hang on to this guy. He's an amazing person. And that pretty much wraps it up for today's net worth video. So thank you guys so much for joining me once again. Hope you're all doing great. Hope you all had an amazing month in the markets like I did. And I'm really excited to see you guys in the next video. Bye.